Amdoei got out of Mark Amdoei for 15 years in public service. And that was, I will do my homework, I will talk to the stakeholders, and I will do what I think is the right policy for Nevada and the nation at the time. That, I think, at its essence, is the job of legislative representative democracy.
Thank you. All right, up next we're going to do a quick lightning round of questions, yes or no answers, maybe one sentence at the most, and we're going to cut you off, and we'll start with Professor Herzig. Fire away.
A non-economic question. Would you support the so-called DREAM Act, which provides a pathway to citizenship for illegal immigrants who have served in the U.S. military and in government service?
I support the spirit of the DREAM Act, but we need comprehensive immigration reform. We can't just have a Band-Aid. Thank you.
Kate Marshall and Mark Amdoei agree on that question.
I also agree. I would support the spirit of the DREAM Act. However, I think we need to make some substantive changes the way we protect our border and our immigration policy.
I agree with my three fellow candidates. I would also add that we need to build that particular plan from a budget perspective as well and see what kind of impact it has on our fiscal responsibilities.
Thank you. I have one question on behalf of the gentleman who's sitting behind us that I don't want to ignore. Are we doing enough to help disabled veterans in this country? Mr. Lehman, we'll start with you.
No, we're not. There are 10 million homeless vets just from Iraq and Afghanistan here in the streets of the U.S. There are still homeless vets from Vietnam. We need to get roofs over these people's heads, and when I went and talked about the right to a roof, I'm talking about that too.
Thank you, Mr. Fasano.
Oh, sorry.
That's right.
No, we have not done enough to help our vets. Currently, we have vets coming in from Afghanistan, Iraq, and still we have vets that are from the Vietnam War that have PTSD. We have TBI, which is a brain injury. We need to do as much as possible to help our vets, and that includes employment training.
Thank you. Mr. Amdoei, got to keep it moving.
No, we're not doing enough to support them. As one of the folks on this stage who brings a perspective of having served on active duty and having sent a daughter to deployment in the Gulf twice in the past 5 years, I think we need to do more. I think it's possible to do more within restrained budget conditions because every budget is about value judgments, and these folks should be at the top of the list.
Thank you. Veterans benefits are on the chopping block right now, and they'll be part of what is voted on and looked at in December. I support making sure that we have and keep intact veterans benefits, and my work as state treasurer with the veterans shows that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on now to our closing statements. We'll start with Mr. Lehman and work our way back. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. Here's my opportunity to thank Commander Waltman from the VFW and from all of the VFW 3819 and Channel 4 for sponsoring this, and our distinguished panel, all of you who showed up tonight to spend the Wednesday evening with us, and all of you watching on the internet, television, and perhaps listening on the radio. An hour goes by fast. So we talked about a couple of things. I like the fact we talked about issues, we talked about specifics. That's what I'm all about. I'm all about, we've got huge issues. Coming from the business world, one of the things I've been trained in is kind of the scientific methodology of problem solving. You have an issue, you investigate what the problem is, you identify the root causes of that problem, and then you try to be as creative as possible to eliminate that root cause. If there are any secondary causes, you go after them too, so you don't have recurring problems or unintended consequences. So we need change. As I said before, the major parties, these are good folks here, but the major parties have been taken over they're under the thumb of Wall Street and big business, and there are a lot of self-serving leaders in Washington and New York and throughout the rest of this nation that don't really care too much about our future and don't care about the average man or woman in this country and our children. And we need to hand our children a much better future than the one we're going to hand to them now. And
thank you, Mr. Lehman.
Consider voting for me. Thank you.
And Kate Marshall, your closing statement.
Thank you. Tonight, you saw some clear contrast between myself and our opponents on the stage, particularly Mark Amdoei. I stand firm in protecting Medicare. Healthcare costs are skyrocketing, but it's not fair to balance the budget on the backs of our seniors. Mr. Amdoei doesn't agree with me. Let me quote his view of the Ryan budget. I like a lot of what he has to say in terms of Medicare. I think that's excellent. There's only one candidate here who will protect your Medicare and Social Security, and that is me. I worked hard as your treasurer, and I've made you money every single quarter, even when other people's portfolios lost money. I turned down a pay raise, and I audited my own office. In contrast, Mark Amdoei sponsored the largest tax increase in Nevada's history, over $1 billion, including a payroll tax. So every time you hire someone in Nevada, you pay more taxes. It's no wonder our employment rate is the highest in the nation. Amdoei has shown he is reckless. He said he would never raise the debt ceiling and claims the Chinese will goose step on our capital. This brinkmanship is what has made Congress lurch from crisis to crisis, and it takes away from the priority, which must be jobs. Take a closer look at my record of success for Nevada. I have never made the treasurer's
Ms.
office
Marshall, I
a
have to stop
partisan
you there. I
office.
apologize.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Amdoei, next.
Thank you. Who will you choose to lead for Nevada's Congressional District 2 on September 13th during early voting? It's an important issue because it's the only seat out of 535 between the Senate and the House whose sole reason for existing is to advocate on behalf of the people of CD2. Choose wisely. I hope you look at credentials. I hope that you look at who's got experience in the legislative process. I hope you look at who has integrity in the legislative process. I hope you take a look at who has worked for 24 years in the private sector to earn their living. When you're worried about unemployment, you're worried about foreclosures, you're worried about the economy, I think it's a good thing to have somebody who comes from the private sector. But you know what? The most important thing is someone who tells you the truth and who doesn't engage in things that they think are necessary just to get them through the election. And so you will see from my acts over the last 15 years in public service and the way that I've conducted my campaign in this race, that we have told you the truth about what Obamacare does to Medicare. We've told you the truth that we will support and enhance it and won't pull the rug out from other people. We've told you the truth about the fights that we've engaged in on behalf of private businesses as a Nevada legislator. So I hope the highest value that you place when you decide who you're going to vote for is someone who's been one of you for their whole life, who knows who elected them and has never strayed from that, has a very high history of re-election. I solicit your vote on September 13th or an early voting.
Thank you, Mr. Amdoei. Mr. Casale.
In my campaign, I've opened gates and gone into Nevada's communities. We all have a common opinion. We are not okay with $17 trillion in debt and continued deficit spending in this country. We are not okay with deploying our military forces in countless operations around the globe that just deteriorate their preparedness and drain our nation of our finest at the price of their blood and our treasure. We are not okay with the federal government that has transferred weapons to criminal drug cartels across our southern border, and those very weapons are being used to kill citizens in both Mexico and the United States. We are not okay with the business as usual in Washington, D.C., with the political games, the posturing, and the never letting a good engineered crisis go to waste. And this list goes on and on. If you're okay with many of these things, then by all means, vote for the Republican or the Democrat, who quite frankly are out of the same cloth. I would not be your candidate. What makes me your candidate is the fact that not only will I stand and represent the interests of all the people of Congressional District 2, but I will stand for the rule of law and bring common sense and a breath of conviction.
All right, thank
passion,
you, Mr.
and purpose.
Fasano. I appreciate it. Well, we are out of time. The hour does go by fast with these things. I want to thank our candidates, our panelists. I want to thank our audience here who came out to watch live, and our audience at home as well, and the Veterans of Foreign Wars for sponsoring tonight's debate. A reminder, the special election coming up on September 13th, and early voting begins on August 27th. I do hope that you will get out and make your voice heard in the upcoming election. Thank you for watching.